NBA draft week is upon us, so that means we have mock drafts to react to. Let's see what NBA experts have for the Raptors at 19. So ESPN has the Raptors taking Carlton, aka Bub Carrington. He's a 6'4" point guard from Pittsburgh, one of the youngest players in this draft, born in 2005, which is also the year where Emancipation of Mimi came out, which is making me feel just like an old man. But Bub, I think for the Raptors, fits because the Raptors definitely need more help at point guard. Right now, Emmanuel Quickley's the only one on the roster. And I think with Bub, you're seeing a very shifty player, somebody who can get his own shot off the dribble. His strength right now is definitely the mid-range game. He's got great self-creation out of pick and roll or even out of isolation. And he shot 50% on mid-range pull-ups, which is just genuinely one of the hardest shots in the game. Now, I think you would want to see him improve from the three-point line. Can he extend his range deeper? He's got kind of a two-motion shot, so it's not necessarily the most natural thing for him to be able to extend his range, but he is a good shooter right now from mid-range and from free throws. He's also not the best at getting to the rim just at the moment, a little bit more slender, but also more importantly, he's not really using his first step well enough to get to the basket. But ultimately, a guard who can create for himself, who's very young, who's got good size, and if the Raptors take him at 19, there's an easy fit there. 3 key stats with Bub Carrington. Mid-range shooting, he shot 51% on pull-up twos. That's definitely his best skill. 3-point shooting, he's at 32% from 3 on 6 attempts per game, and that's only on the college 3. And then driving, only finished about 51% at the rim, and he didn't get there very often. Next up, over at The Athletic, friend of the program, Sam Vecini, has the Raptors taking Jacoby Walter. He is a 6'4" wing from Baylor, born in 2004. On his birthday, Lean Back Terror Squad was the #1 song, which is once again making me feel ancient. So Jacoby, his strength is definitely the outside shot. Very, very high volume outside shooter, shooting off of movement, shooting catch and shoots primarily, but a lot of plays where he's catching it on the go and he's shooting off of those specific sets designed for him to get open, kind of like Grady in a way, if you want to envision a type of player. Perimeter shot creation is not that strong, nor does I feel like he doesn't get to the rim that much. The one thing he does is shoot the 3, and obviously that is the most important skill in the NBA right now. But for me, I'm not necessarily a fan of this pick for the Raptors. I understand it. I understand why that he would be valuable in the league. And of course, if he develops a secondary skill, all of a sudden he'd be very dynamic. But to me, he strikes me as like a less athletic version of Terrence Ross. And I wasn't necessarily a fan of Terrence Ross on the Raptors in the first place. But I totally get it. If the Raptors went this direction, that obviously means that they feel like they not only believe in the 3-point shot, but that they believe that there's a secondary skill to join the 3. 3 key stats to know about Jacoby Walter. #1, the shot diet. 57% of his attempts last season were 3s. So this is a high volume 3-point shooter. #2, his 3-point accuracy. Despite being a high volume 3-point shooter, his accuracy wasn't that strong, only at 34%. These are hard looks, but needs to get better there. And then the third point, free throw attempts. 5.2 attempts is pretty high for a guy who primarily shoots jumpers. Next up, the ringer. It's also Jacoby Walter from Baylor. We just talked about him. Let's move on to Bleacher Report. Bleacher Report, they have the Raptors taking Keyshawn George at 19. He is a 6'8" guard from Miami. Born in 2003, #1 song on his birthday was Stand Up by Ludacris, which definitely got a huge reaction at the grade 6 dance. Keyshawn came off the bench for half the year, which is not uncommon for freshmen. Only averaged about 7 points per game. The big sell here is the potential, right? He's a big ball handler at 6'8", and he shot the 3 at a decent rate. So you combine those two things, you can see a lot of players in the league that have some idea of that, set of skills. However, at the same time, at the current moment, I don't think he's going to become an immediate contributor because he's a good passer. Nothing necessarily stands out too much about the passing, though, other than he can really push the break. And in terms of getting his own shot at the moment, that's going to take a little bit more time. I think you're going to need to see him develop his skills, grow a little bit more physically, but also at the same time, 6'8" ball handler who can shoot the 3 decently. there is definitely some potential here. So I kind of understand why Bleacher Report has Keyshawn going at 19 to us at Toronto. 3 key stats to know about Keyshawn George. Number 1, 3-point shooting. He shot it at 41% at over 4 attempts per game. That's really good. Number 2, the shot diet. 68% of his shots were from 3 this past season. And then number 3, the playmaking. 67 assists against 48 turnovers. That could improve. Next up, an oldie but a goldie, NBADraftnet. You are a real sicko if you on this website. They have the Raptors taking Rob Dillingham at 19. So he's a 6'1", 165-pound point guard from Kentucky. I mean, first off, all cards on the table. I don't think Rob's going to fall this far because as compared to the previous guys, I mean, he is just an electric scorer. But even before we get into that, the top song on his birthday, the Dirty Mac anthem itself, Let Me Love You by Mario, written by Neo. Excellent song at karaoke, but also, once again, the most Dirty Mac song you can ever get. Anyway, Rob Dillingham, if he slipped to the Raptors at 19, you just take him. You don't think about it twice. He is so electric to watch. Averaged over 15 points per game in just 23 minutes of action as a freshman in Kentucky. Super athletic, can get to his own shot. Very, very hard for people to stay in front of him. Shot the 3 at a high rate as well, which is something that's, again, you could totally see him, especially if he gets just a little bit better on defense, becoming an all-star in the future. He has that type of offensive creation already at this age. Classic Kentucky guard, super quick, super shifty. Of course, you do have some concerns about the size because he would be one of the smallest or one of the skinniest players in the league once he comes in. But also at the same time, I think he used that to his advantage really well. He attacks mismatches. And just in general, I don't think he's going to slip to 19, but if he did slip to 19, this would be a nice win for the Raptors. 3 key stats about Rob Dillingham. 1, the scoring, 15 points per game last season and only 23 minutes played. 2, the 3-point shooting, he hit 44% from deep, including many self-created ones. And number 3, he was a 6th man, only started 1 game all season last year. Next up, we got Yahoo Sports, and they have the Raptors taking Yves Missi at the 19th pick. He is a 7-foot center from Baylor, and the number 1 song on his birthday was Yeah by Usher, which gave us the iconic scene from Hitch featuring Kevin James. So the strengths for Yves Missi is that he is a super athlete, blocks a ton of shots, is a strong lob catcher, obviously plays above the rim. You can play him a lot in pick and roll, and he's got good mobility. He's not like a 7-footer who's kind of stiff. He's certainly a guy who has the potential to move his feet, be mobile, potentially even switch, although obviously because of his athleticism and rim protection, you want to keep him around the basket. The downside is that he's just not very skilled otherwise, in terms of just offense not being set up for him. Doesn't have an outside shot. And even though he was efficient around the basket and did a good job of playing that pick and roll, I think for Darko's system, he especially values bigs who can pass and also stretch the floor. And I just don't think that those are 2 things that you can realistically expect from Missi, especially as a rookie. But totally understand the Raptors need a backup center. They need somebody to play defense on this team, and Yves makes a lot of sense. 3 stats to know about Yves Missi. Number 1, he's a strong rebounder. 4.6 offensive rebounds per 40 minutes. Certainly is going to be a presence. Number 2, he's a great shot blocker. 2.6 blocks per 40 minutes, and also is disruptive on defense with the steals. And then number 3, limited scorer. Only 1 outside shot attempted last season at Baylor. Last up, we got HoopsHype, and they have the Raptors taking Khalil Ware at 19. He is a 7-foot center from Indiana. The number 1 song on his birthday was also Yeah by Usher, because that dominated the music charts for like a solid, 20 years basically since it came out. Salute to Usher, legend. With the upside and the talent, it's very good. He is a very skilled center who knows how to move his feet, knows how to get a shot off, has a bit of a jumper as well, and just overall is going to be a presence in the paint. Offensively, there's definitely talent there, and I think that, if you can get him to also engage on defense, yes, he blocks shots, yes, he gets steals, but gets his hands caught, down quite a bit. If you just get him a little bit more engaged on defense overall, I think the Raptors would have a really, really nice pick here at 19. I think the downside is just, like his former coaches said about him, like he just didn't necessarily play hard or just needs to sort of find more consistent engagement. That's something obviously that's a little bit concerning, and we've seen sort of those like more I wouldn't even say lazier, but just like less intense bigs, you know, in Toronto history. Shout out Andrea Bargnani. But like, I don't think it's that bad. Just generally though, it's a bit polarizing. I think if you have a strong culture, you got a strong coach who really has a clear defined role for him. And honestly, if Khalil really just sharpens up like he did last season in Indiana and continues to build off of that, this will be a nice pick for the Raptors at 19. 3 key stats to know about Khalil Ware. Number 1, he's a good finisher, shot 61% on twos, and a lot of those were self-generated as well. Number 2, rim protection. He blocked 1.9 shots per game last season. And at number 3 is the scoring improvement. He went from averaging 6.6 points to 16 points per game between his freshman and sophomore seasons. So my favorite pick from these mock drafts is Khalil Ware. So shout out to HoopsHype. I just think, look, you bet on the talent. I don't like ruling out 20-year-olds on character concerns, and this is where you just have to trust in Darko's ability to develop. Khalil's actually one of my favorite 5 players that I wanted to see the Raptors take at 19. I discussed those with Sam Vecini in a previous video that you can find in the description. And finally, the top song on my birthday, because I'm old, was I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston. Now that's real music right there. So enough of mock drafts. Let's just see who the Raptors actually take on Wednesday.